All right, I gave you homework. It is.
Yep.
It is. Our way. We are not wrapping up the 2025 Penn State football season yet because there is still a football game. We are not doing Penn State Sports Person of the Year because, as we decided last year, we are now going to move that to a school schedule and not a annual schedule.
Okay.
So I wanted some way to wrap up this chaotic year. I think it has been a very important one for Penn State athletics writ large. I think it's been a very stressful one for Penn State athletics writ large. At times, maybe this school year portion of it, more recent school year portion of it than the first half of the year for sure. So I asked you for 5 things that have changed, that have impacted the way we talk, consume Penn State athletics, Penn State writ large. Just I keep saying writ large tonight. I don't know why writ large. So
I don't know. Mike had better words than you.
Yeah.
That he was pulling out the thesaurus using.
He used some big words.
Yeah. But I wrote down 5 things that impacted fans at PSA.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. I think that was the more concise way I texted it to you, and I just completely forgot it.
Okay.
So, as always, age before beauty. We have not shared our list with each other, so we'll see how this goes. We have no clue.
Do you want the whole list, or am I just giving you one?
Give me one, and you are not ranking yours, correct? Or did you?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
I don't think
I'll
so.
give you one that this was the most noticeable thing for Penn State fans. I don't know if it impacted them, but perhaps it did. It's the stadium signage. It's West Shore Homes Field at Beaver Stadium, because it was just supposed to be a logo on the field, not on all 4 corners, not all the way around. I don't know if that impacted people, but they certainly saw it.
If we were putting a Penn State Sports Person of the Year out there for just 2025, I think it would go to BJ Worzen and the West Shore. It might, instead of being like, a specific person, when they do the time does like, and you, or like the doctors, it would be West Shore home. That would be our big one. I have one on here that is like tangentially related, but we'll stay there because I think that's a big change. And so mine, I put stadium renovation, so we can get to that because that's also, I think that's a sub or a secondary storyline. But I think of things that happened this year, that was probably until the coaching search, honestly, the most talked about, the most debated, the most frustrated over. I do think that what is frustrating about that whole process is we were sold it as a field naming rights, and you go into the stadium, and before you even get into the stadium, there's the signage. Then you get into, it's on the field, it's on the jumbotrons. I think that was we blew past that. It became a stadium night naming deal. One of the things I've tried to look into this football season and just kind of, when James Franklin got fired, one of the things I tried to look into is like, did Penn State leave money on the table? And I think this deal, for what it's actually become, I do believe that Penn State left money on the table of this should have been a stadium naming rights. They could have gotten more money out of it that way. Longer term, bigger pot that they left on the table comparatively to what you look at around the country. So I think that was important. And I do think there was the very public screw up of the Gate A sign. Like I think that was it was an unnecessary self-inflicted wound in this process that they did not need to go through, because they just half-assed it.
Yeah, so from that aspect, and then the mental aspect of it, it's not going to be back for the people that wanted to be Paterno Field and whatever else. So it did impact people just in terms of their perception, their concern, any worry they put on it. So yeah, I guess I'm a little more comfortable with it as an impact now. And there had to be money. There's more to come around the stadium that you could name, and you could, whether it's the gates on the east and west, which again, hello Wawa and Sheets, and there's the gift we're giving to you athletics, and nobody wants it. There had to be money left on the table. Just because it was supposed to be one thing, it became something bigger. Unless they did their due diligence and asked, and they couldn't find anybody who was even close, and they figured, okay, this is what we're going to get. We're going to go with it.
Yeah, and I think about that because I don't know who they could have gotten necessarily more from. It's just how how Penn State athletics has packaged it. And you mentioned the psychological aspect, and that was I mean, this is the first time, really, quote unquote, like at least within the 100 yards of play, that there have been logos on the field at Beaver Stadium, right? Like this was such a big moment that has kind of been a cornerstone of now the Pat Kraft era of we're gonna find a sponsor for everything, and now we have two logos on the field, or well, one logo on the field and one logo just outside of the field. So all that is to say, I think that one comes to mind in terms of probably 1A, 1B of moments. I think if I can take the stab at my first one, I think this one is the other big one that hasn't happened yet, but has also been debated pretty heavily already, at least in several of my group chats or my one main group chat, and that is the Adidas deal. I think that one, and maybe it's tied together with the West Shore home and the NASCARification of the stadium, and then really the NASCARification of the process. But the severing of ties between Penn State and Nike was a surprise. It was pretty wild when I first heard it, and then when it kind of became public, it was like, holy, like cow, like. I didn't think people reacted the way I was surprised at the way people reacted, both in the sense that there were people that were upset and there were people that were very logical about it, of like, okay, like if Nike's not gonna do this thing, now fans like are gonna be like, okay, we want people that are going to support us in this process, support Penn State in this process.
Yeah, and following that logic, you are casting your lot with people who are going to support you. If you're not going to be the Nike school, and Ohio State is, and Michigan is, then go find a place, and Oregon is, go find a place that's going to compete against them and be their school. And I think that was maybe not part of it initially from the Penn State side, because it sounded like maybe Nike had made that decision for them in some ways. But then if you're Penn State, that's certainly something you can embrace. Okay, this is who we are going forward.
No, I agree with that. All right, what else is on your list?
I had the emergence and creation of Roar, just because of the mindset change of content and access. I don't know if it impacted many fans, but the mindset and the approach will if they start figuring it out. And we know from Leah as a guest, they're going to try to relaunch sort of and refigure it out. Matt Campbell rollout was probably a sample of that. Like if you're somebody who wants to know first and wants to have something different, Roar had that. Roar Plus had that. So if they can find ways to do that, maybe it'll impact fans and drive them to sign up.
I think what is missing from Roar Plus, that was the thing that I said when we first found out about it, was Penn State can't get in its own way. And it feels like Penn State has gotten in its own way. And I don't know that there has been that exclusivity there. And I don't know that it ever really happened until maybe Terry Smith actually, like, quote unquote, became the interim head coach, because he was the first person to do the interviews with LeVar that we were not getting the same thing from James Franklin at the Monday press conference. There was something unique there. We were hearing him LeVar ask really good questions, and I think LeVar has done a great job with that platform in particular. That just, I think that was something like, okay, this is a foundation we can build, Penn State can build on. I do feel like there's still the insideriness. There were some things that were teased but not necessarily like leaked, and then other journalists, actual journalists out in the broader world got it. I think that like I think they could have, if they really wanted to, like could have been given updates about the coaching search a little bit more clearly during that process, like paying for that type of access. Just give me something, give me a reason to spend with you versus spending with a message board. company.
I agree. But in your world there, they had to have a plan for what they were going about to be able to share what was happening, right?
Right.
And I don't know that they did. I mean,
right. Well, nobody had a plan.
They got to the end game, all right. No, that's the challenge with Roar. It can be that thing. You just have to be organized and committed enough, and you have to have a content calendar, and you have to be nimble and be able to go off that calendar. You have to think about different sports and who's worth seeing there, and it's probably mostly football and wrestling all the time. And wrestling's tough because they don't often share stuff, although they've done some more stuff there, I guess. But yeah, so I don't know that there was a big impact this year, but that approach will impact fans, or should impact fans if they do it right going forward.
Yes, I agree with that. And I do think, I mean, some of the content that's been on there, the Matt Campbell rollout was great, but the video about the guy that was the lion was probably even better, and is worth the subscription alone. And even some of the conversations between LeVar and Terry Smith were good, because LeVar asked not tougher questions, but he did this with James Franklin as well. He could leverage his position of comfortability with the person to get a better answer out of them, a more unique answer than we were going to get at a press conference from anyone. I think that was big. Okay. We said Adidas. We said the name change of the field. I think I'm gonna. The stadium renovation is kind of weird because it's something that's like present, but also in the aspect of like you went to the game and you saw how the stadium changed. I don't know that it's like kind of coming. I do think one thing that changed the way Penn Staters like experience Penn State was the legacy fund this year. That was a cost increase, a taxation kind of leaning towards like Roar Plus. And I do think that's just there's no going back now, in the same way like the Nittany Lion Club all those years ago was a no going back. This Pandora is out of the box, and you're gonna have to pay that pretty much always moving forward. Just make sure that you bring a water bottle cap with you. I think that to me was one of the bigger changes, not very well talked about, or talked about much at all. And I don't know whose place that is, and maybe that's our place, and that's one of the reasons why we have talked about it. But I think that when we look at the cost of being a Penn State fan, and those little things start to really add up, whether it's a Nittany Lion Club donation, whether it's the legacy fund, whether it's just the general cost of going to a game, and the quality of the product that you are now paying for, like that also has to rise with it. And some of that is on the team, right? Like Penn Staters want to see the Penn State football team or whatever team it is do well. But some of that is just as simple of giving people caps with their water, or making sure that the food options, which are not cheap anymore, are good, or you get some type of value. And you're getting something out of your process, or of spending all of this money on something, and it's not just we're spending money and what's the return on investment? Nothing. Because it needs to be, obviously, the outcome of the game is what is most important for most people, but there needs to be some type of quid pro quo there, I think.
Oh, you're buying something, you're supporting something. Yeah. There's got to be some return, and again, you're supporting things in athletics as directly as any other gift, more so in some ways. You're expecting to see a return on the field, or connections with people. So tell people what they're spending for. Show them where the money goes. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's hard. And I know people aren't going to open their books and want to do things, but there's got to be a way to make it at least feel like you're being transparent, even if you're not. So I had a money one. I have about one that just came to mind. It's not the money, but they're like my remaining three are all kind of around the same area, but it kind of builds off the legacy fund. So I'm gonna go to that one. I think the losses and struggles for the football team on the field led to no ticket increase next year. That certainly impacts fans. Like, tickets are going to cost the same. So, but my question is, we just talked about the legacy fund. Will that go up?
I hadn't thought about that. because that's the thing. Like now there are all of these ways for Penn State, as I think technically speaking from 23 to 24, I think it was, when the ticket prices didn't go up, but the Nittany Lion Club donation went up. And even like they said this year that ticket prices didn't go up, and that was the thing that like kind of was the whole issue or crux of the issue was ticket prices didn't go up, but we have this legacy fund that there's now a 5% service fee on, basically. So yeah, the cost of like you can't opt out of the legacy fund. There was no way to not pay it. So that was a part of the process. So I think that's an interesting one. If you have more on that point, I have one that ties into that, I think, as well.
Yeah, I just, in terms of impacting fans, that was the one that most, on my list, that most specifically, their pocketbooks, whatever else, the rest of them were emotional or are emotional impacts or feeling impacts. But if ticket prices aren't going up next year, that's definitely an impact. Then again, the price still may go up for what you pay out of pocket overall.
So the one that is tangentially related to that I was thinking about and have been kind of thinking about lately, that has happened lately specifically, and this is it, but it is such a big change, is the coaching search, just the whole coaching search process, and now the whole fact that there is a new quote unquote administration in terms of how Penn State might be disseminating information about Penn State football. So I thought about that in a couple different ways. I think that ties into just the fact that we saw a lot more of the word sources, and are seeing a lot more of the word sources around this time of year. I think that's big. James Franklin notoriously had like just an ironclad grip on the marketing and the tweets and all of that. There's been a couple of recruits already, and we have not seen a bat signal tweet. It does not seem that Matt Campbell is going to do that, which I think is fine. So there's like all of that. Then there's also the fact that like the information that's gotten out, both what Pat Kraft said in the leaked audio, and then the fact that like we now know an NIL number of 30 million and things like that. All of this just kind of changes the way people consume things, and I think it's hard to say like just this one aspect of the whole coaching search will change everything, because like anytime there's a coaching change, it does change things, especially for the way college football departments specifically work. But I think about like now, to your point, is if we talked about like expectations are going to be a little bit higher now that we know that Penn State's spending $30 million, and we know that they're quote unquote a top 4 roster or whatever Pat Kraft said in that audio. I think about that, and I think about just like what other things are we going to get to see and hear over the next couple of weeks, months, that are going to be very different. So I think that's a big change, if you will. I didn't know how to put that one other than coaching search.
Yeah, there was a lot that was there with that, and for me, the one that came to my mind, I guess this is the fourth one I've shared around coaching search, was the button. I think the button certainly impacted fans at Penn State this year.
Yeah.
It exposed some cracks in the fan base that were still there. It got people to rally around something. It was a lot bigger than whatever the and it certainly, as we found out later, the administration said, hey, no, don't do that. And he did. Its impact was certainly much bigger than whatever the 2x2 circle was or 3x3 circle was on his lapel. So I think that impacted Penn State fans, because it made them share something, or it made them defend something, or it made them feel like they were part of something, or feel like, oh, we're going here again. Whatever it was, I don't think you can be a Penn State fan, could have been a Penn State fan this year, and saw that and said, oh, okay, there's that.
You had to have an opinion.
You felt something. I mean, whether you expressed it or not, you're probably like, oh, here we go again. Oh, darn right, something.
Yeah.
So that little button did a lot of work.
That's a good one. I mean, I think the button. That's another inanimate object that we could consider for Penn State Sports Person of the Year. Like I think the button made people deal with things. Like I think that was also part of the process. Like I think the button was better in some ways. Like the Paterno Field aspect of the whole field naming thing came up, and that was heated, but that was different. That only lingered for a day or two, right? And it didn't. It by the end of the start of the season, it mattered in the way we talked about it there, but it didn't matter the same way the button mattered, which was like, okay, how do we wrestle with this, and how does Penn State want to move on, and what is the conversation around Joe Paterno now, 15 years later? Like, how does Penn State handle that? And I think that at least was the. I think that was the. It's wild to think that was probably the third most interesting part of the coaching search. Like if you were to rank them, it would probably go, in my mind at least, it would be audio, the Kalani Sitake like near signing, and then the button of like. But that was the first, what felt like a climax event, right? Like it felt like this like peak moment that, yeah, that was that was good. Okay, the last one that I have, I think I'm at 5. I've lost track at this point because I've changed my mind on like several of these. I wrote the word big spending down, and I think that means a couple different things. I think that's the stadium renovation. Penn State's gonna pay $700 million for a stadium renovation. There's that. But then there's also the fact that the new football coach makes $11 million a year. That's bigger spending. I think about Gavin McKenna and potentially like what his NIL deal was and how big that spending was. I think about the fact that Pat Kraft went out and hired up until the time, the defending national champion men's soccer coach. Like that's not cheap. Like all of these, like, I guess it's big spending, big throwing money around that to me has raised expectations at Penn State, changed the way fans look at things, and I think might only going forward make things even more tense when it comes to expectations. So I think that's been a big change for fans in a lot of different sports, not just within football. I mean, I think the Gavin McKenna story of it all is a massive part of the process.
Yeah, and on the one side, I get the investment in, say, football, and that leads to a mean-spiritedness from the fans when it's time for Franklin to go. I mean, everybody rallied around that and was all sure that was it and time to go, and we're really going to be kind of mean about it as we go out the process. The McKenna and the soccer coach, as you mentioned, I still don't know the ROI on those things, because Gavin McKenna is here to, and we've had this discussion, is here to help them get one more win, right? Or two. That's it. All that money and they were already selling out. So I guess
I think we're seeing it though. I think the Gavin McKenna, and I said this
the present,
to you,
it's the World Juniors and things like that. I mean that.
But I think the Gavin McKenna thing is so much more than that, especially with the outdoor game lingering. Well, it's has like I think it's just like I think Pat Kraft cares more about Penn State hockey than he does Penn State basketball on both genders teams. I really.
I think that's clear, but I think most fans do too.
And I think that's what that signifies and leans into.
The only outlier may be that the media that's covered Penn State men's basketball cares a little more than the fans do.
No, and I think that's fair.
May be the only change.
So. I think that's fair, and I think that's the big aspect to the big spending of it all. It's just like, this feels like we are going to put more weight on men's hockey as I don't know what the second or third sport is anymore.
Game, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and obviously the outdoor game is in 2026, but they announced it in 2025. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get to men's soccer next week or the week. I mean, that one I don't know that I mean, not that it's the national championship it's going to matter, but the games are free. So where do you make up that revenue in terms of relevance, or is it just success, that kind of thing? So
no.
Okay, so my last two are two names, one entry, because I think I'm only at 4.
Okay,
but I'm going to try to stay sort of true to our media roots in some ways. So 2 names: Gus Johnson and Jerry Neuheisel. I think those two gentlemen and how they were portrayed on broadcast this year impacted Penn State fans during those afternoons at least a little bit.
There is one person in the Juniata section of Altoona, Pennsylvania.
It still hasn't recovered?
That still has not, is that is still bitter about the way Jerry Neuheisel was talked about during the UCLA broadcast. I think that's a good one. I would, if you gave me 100 guesses, I don't think I would have had that on my list. But you're right. I think maybe more so with Jerry Neuheisel in some ways, because I think people knew what they were getting from Gus Johnson.
Right, no, they're numb to Gus in some ways.
Yeah, like I think it was kind of surprising to see the CBS, who has been very pro Penn State, or maybe not pro Penn State, but very friendly to Penn State and Penn State fans over the last now 2 seasons that they've had the rights deal. Like, that's a good No, I don't think it tarnished the reputation. I don't think it's turned people off, but I do think now, as opposed to looking at Rick Neuheisel and thinking, oh, he's the guy that ate at the tavern or whatever the story is, he's the guy, the father of the guy.
He was in a little box up there in the corner,
yeah. So no, I think that's a good one.
Right. That's my last one.
All right, that's good. Trying to think, this was a weird year for Penn State athletics. It was like 2020, the 2024-2025 school year, and the end of that school year was great, and the start of the 2025 school year might have been. I mean, that's the thing. Pat Kraft was very ardent, pounding the table, kind of big stump speech on 4 national titles, and it seemed like he wanted to do it this year. And maybe women's hockey, maybe men's hockey.
Well, women's hockey wasn't on his list, but he's got to hope they're on his list now.
Yeah, it's and certainly wrestling, and I don't know where your 4th is coming from. Like, I really don't know where the 4th one would come from at this point in the school year.
No, because football and women's volleyball are done. Those were part of the 4.
Yeah.
Women's hockey would be a blessing in terms of still trying to get him to 4. Wrestling's going to do just fine and get him his 1. And men's hockey's going to be entertaining and exciting, and it's just going to be really hard because that sport has gotten so much better while they've gotten better as well.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. All right. Anything else you want to say about 2025 Penn State athletic year?
No, that's calendar year, right? No, it was a good year. Well, no, it wasn't a good year.
It was a weird year. It was a weird year, man.
It was a hype-filled year, which I think felt different to me. It was leaning into hype. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to talk, and then you got to walk after it. And the Penn State DNA that I had instilled was just shut up and let your play do the talking. Hand the ball to the guy after you cross the goal line. La 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 la. All those cliches. And it's changed, and it has to change because you're selling in some ways, lots of ways. So they have to sell. There has to be a little bit more brash that comes with it, and the AD is a little more brash that comes with it. So I think that's the change. The biggest change for me is just the nature of the beast has changed a little bit, both internally and externally.
No, I think that's fair. Thought of another big spending, 2 big spendings. Jim Knowles, spending all that money on Jim Knowles, and then potentially whatever is left in the buyout, and then I guess the third big spending would be Terry Smith, right? Like making him the highest non-coordinator coach in college football.
And I'm curious because I forget. His position is cornerbacks, defensive.
Nobody knows. No one knows on the new.
But before that,
yes, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you're going to make an argument about positions that didn't play well, I mean,
to be fair, one of the biggest plays of the season is because of the year is because the cornerback fell down and let a Notre Dame receiver score a touchdown. That's going to be forever burned in my brain. I think the quarterback play is the 2 interceptions are going to be the 2 big moments of how people remember. If you're trying to think of individual plays, I think that's on there. Yeah.
I think as a man, as a leader of the program, there's no doubt. But if you're going through coaches getting in trouble for their unit or being judged by their unit, it's an interesting aspect of the discussion.
It's fair.